Now, President Donald Trump says the U.S. has not agreed to a deal with Iran because Washington is not happy with what Tehran has offered. He's been speaking at a meeting of his cabinet at the White House. The U.S. president insists the Strait of Hormuz will be open to everyone and no country will control the waterway.
Iran is very much intent. They want very much to make a deal. So far, they haven't gotten there. We're not satisfied with it, but we will be. We will be either that or we'll have to just finish the job. But their Navy is gone, as I've said 1,000 times. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Everything's gone, and they're negotiating on fumes. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish it. Maybe we don't. Right now, I mean, you can speak to Steve Witkoff and Jared. They're doing a good job. But right now, I think it looks like they want to just make a deal. They want to. They have. I don't think they have a choice. They're just going back to the internet because they're getting clobbered. Their economy is in free fall. They have 250% inflation. Their money has no value. Their whole economic system is broken down.
Let's speak to Manuel Rapalo, who's live for us at the White House. Manuel, help us interpret here what we heard from Donald Trump. They're negotiating on fumes. They want to make a deal. Where are we now in terms of these negotiations?
This cabinet meeting that took place on Wednesday here at the White House, certainly taking place against a backdrop of one of the most difficult foreign policy tests that the Trump administration has faced to date, this ongoing standoff with Iran. The White House is seeking essentially here to project momentum on the question of Iran and on the question of finalizing a peace deal with Iran as pressure continues to mount for this conflict to come to an end. You heard there in that opening soundbite from President Trump ahead of this segment where he's talking about his desire to have a great deal and, quote, if it is not a great deal, we're not going to make it. Now, we should note here that this is President Trump's 12th cabinet meeting since returning to the Oval Office. He took this opportunity to speak about a variety of different topics, many of which are politically sensitive ahead of the upcoming midterm elections, including immigration, the economy and inflation. But it was Iran that loomed large over these meetings. The president is under a lot of pressure from Democrats and from his own base to bring this conflict to an end. But in his own words, what he wants is to make a great deal. And if it's not a great deal, again, he said he is not going to make it.
Manuel, let's break this down a little bit further. Is this a president that's more or less confident today about a deal compared to this weekend when he posted on Truth Social that the deal was largely negotiated and the details will be announced soon?
Well, this is something that we have heard continuously from both the President of the United States and members of his cabinet, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has often said that this could be, even today, said that we need to look and see how this plays out over the coming hours, over the coming days. We also heard from Vice President J.D. Vance just on Tuesday evening sounding hopeful, saying that he was hopeful that if Iran were to make a deal, that Iran would not pursue development of nuclear weapons. So right now, what we're hearing is not anything necessarily new in terms of where we are. There was a question asked to President Trump if this was a football pitch, what yard line would the negotiations be on? He didn't say exactly where they were, but what we have been hearing consistently from President Trump is that it is just a matter of time before a deal is made. So in terms of has anything changed in the president's attitude in terms of security strategy? Not necessarily, but the president does seem committed to reaching a deal that is favorable for U.S. interests, and anything short of that will simply prolong it. One thing that we should note here is that both President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, for that matter, said that while diplomacy is still the number one focal point here and finding a way to negotiate out of this conflict, they are not ruling out the possibility of, quote, going back and finishing the job. Those were the words of President Trump.
That's Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapalo live for us at the White House. Thanks, Manuel.